All right, we're here with Dr. Jeff Shono, the University of Saskatchewan, and we are talking mineralization. You've just done a great presentation at Grain Expo here at Agribition. Lots of questions about what to expect in subsequent years from manure as well as from stubble. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe farmers who are using manure, maybe some tips on what to expect in that first year and what factors might change how much is available?
Sure. In some manures, and I'm thinking here specifically about cattle manure, nearly all of the nitrogen contained in solid cattle manure is in the organic form. And in order for plants to be able to use nitrogen in manure, it needs to be converted into an inorganic form, ammonium and nitrate that roots can absorb. So what we rely on when manure is applied to a field is microorganisms to break down that organic material and release that nutrient like nitrogen, like sulfur, into the available forms. And manures are different in terms of how they behave in this release of available nitrogen and sulfur and other nutrients in this process we call mineralization. Some manures, for example, manures from pens where a lot of straw bedding or wood chips have been used, there's a lot of carbon associated with the fecal material, with the urine. And what that means is that the microbes that are doing the mineralization, the breakdown, have to chew through a lot of carbon to get to the nitrogen and release it. And so consequently we see with some penning manures actually quite low availability of nitrogen in the year of application. Although those manures can supply a lot of phosphorus, low nitrogen availability may limit growth, such that, for example, there may be some benefit from supplementing that manure nitrogen with some commercial fertilizer nitrogen as well. Other manures, on the other hand, and I'm thinking here of liquid manures like liquid swine manure, have more predictable release of available nitrogen. For example, 20 to 30% of the organic nitrogen in liquid manure from swine would be rendered available, plant available in the year of application. With cattle manure, we've seen it as low as only 8 or 10% availability. It can be higher, even as high as 50% if you were dealing mainly with fecal material.
Now, there were a lot of questions about drowned out acres, wetland. How does saturated conditions affect mineralization with crop residues?
Well, I would say generally what we would expect in lower lying areas of the field that aren't flooded, those areas typically are higher in organic matter, they're more moist, and as a consequence, in normal years or dry years, we oftentimes see more available nitrogen release from those low spots compared to the knolls where they're drier and lower organic matter. However, in the past couple of years where we've dealt with those low spots in some fields being completely flooded with water, what the flooding does is it basically results in the soil becoming anaerobic. There's no oxygen left, and that greatly reduces the activity of the microorganisms responsible for this mineralization process. So all the while the soil is flooded, mineralization stops, and that flooding can also accelerate the loss of any inorganic plant available nitrogen that was already present in the soil prior to flooding. It can be leached because of all that water there. It can also be lost to the atmosphere as a gas, a process we call denitrification. Now, I think maybe the good news story here is that once those soils dry out and the water's gone, if you keep them free of weeds, for example, if you got flooding in the spring and you are able to keep them free of weeds over the season, you can, through mineralization, accumulate a fair bit of available nitrogen that will be available for the crop the next year, provided that low spot doesn't flood again.
Great, thanks so much.